Welcome to Creators with Influence, a podcast by the American Influencer Council on the intersection between the creator economy and digital culture.
My name is Keasya Hudgins. I also just go by K Hudgins. I am the founder and host of justKay Media. I'm also a digital content curator, and I'm going to be your moderator for tonight. I'm so excited to partner with American Influencer Council and Clara for Creators to host these beautiful panelists who are going to be discussing some serious matters with you guys, but also giving some perspective. So we're really excited. I'm pleased to have gathered with these panel of key opinion leaders to discuss creative rates and further a transparency dialogue.
Hi everyone, my name is Christen Nino De Guzman and really excited to be here. I see so many amazing creators that I have gotten a chance to work with over the last couple of years. For anyone who I haven't met, I've been working with content creators since 2015. Been working at like Instagram, Pinterest, and most recently TikTok, and have just done a lot in terms of relationship management and helping creators negotiate their own worth and negotiate brand deals. And over, especially the last 2 years, my time at TikTok, with the boom of content creation becoming more accessible, I started to see the rates that creators were being offered and also accepting they were so sporadic across the board. You would have one creator getting $1,000 and one getting $30,000. So I'm passionate about this topic and everything that the American Influencer Council stands for, because this is a really important topic, and the more transparent we can be, I think the better the industry will become. And right now it's a little bit like the Wild Wild West, I would compare it to. Not a lot of centralized information, and so as a result you have a lot of people not really understanding what's possible, or they're not able to become full-time content creators. So that's a lot of my mission behind my company, and excited to be here. I'll pass it along.
Thank you.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Annalise Campbell. I am the CEO and founder of influencer marketing agency CFG. Very similarly, I started my career on the agency side, start working with creators, and I always tell people I never planned to work with influencers. I wanted to make TV ads. But I worked on a digital team for a global PR firm and kind of was right place, right time, also youngest person on the team. And they were like, what are influencers? We should work with them, blah, blah, blah. And thus my love for influencers were born. So my perspective is from the CPG packaged goods side, and I managed a lot of the beginning campaigns for Fortune 500 brands and saw the Wild Wild West in my inbox firsthand. And what I also realized was that the pay parity was much larger for people who looked like me and influencers of color. And so after about 5 years on the agency side, I decided to quit my job and start an influencer marketing agency focused on underrepresented talent and diverse talent, and kind of, again, bridging that gap and making sure that they feel like they can build the career of their dreams and have a really strong team supporting them. So super excited to talk to you guys today. So yeah, nice meeting you all.
Hi everyone, my name is Tejas Hular. I'm a full-time content creator, primarily doing short-form content at the moment, slowly expanding across platforms like YouTube and LinkedIn. I make content for the creator economy. I would say like my two audience groups are early entrepreneurs looking to scale, and then early people in their 20s like looking for direction, because I'm an early 20-year-old looking for direction. That's kind of what I do online, and on the side, I would like to say I'm an early business person. My roommate Dylan and we are starting an ice cream brand here in New York City. Wow. We just raised $1.5 million for that, which is really fun. That moved me to the city, and yeah, excited to talk about creators. I started in the pandemic, August 2020, and my life has changed in the last year. So excited to reveal all the secrets.
Wow. Let's get this Creators with Influence conversation underway. We will have time afterwards for Q&A, so just stay tuned and you guys will be able to ask questions afterwards. But so my first question is for you, Tejas. Per Insider Intelligence, spending on influencer marketing in the U.S. is expected to reach $5 billion next year. The creator economy is booming for some. It seems like every week we hear about new creator monetization, for tools, free gifts, and funds. How do you determine what's worth testing or investing your time in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I recently just broke down my quarter one earnings as a creator, right, primarily on short form. And with TikTok and Instagram, right, where I usually post, that accounted for 1.6% of my total revenue. Right, the other revenue included a lot of brand deals. I also do some educational courses on things like Nas Academy. Right, I produce for other accounts and whatnot. So I have tried to diversify as much as I can, very opportunistic at the moment. When I think of like all the new tools that are coming about, right, all these new funds and things, my rule of thumb goes like this, right? I want to be a long-term creator. I want to be a creator in the next 5-10 years. And I know there's people who are creators right now that are like, I want to get the buck right now. But when I look at it, I go, I want to minimize my time rented out to other brands and maximize the time to build Tejas Hulur, like my brand, my equity. And so I created a number in my head, which is $60,000. I say that's what I can live off of in the city, and everything else, every dollar that I make past that is invested in some way. Unfortunately, some in the crypto world right now, other things in other creators, right? And yeah, and again, I also like to meet a lot of other investors, and I see other creators building cool things, and I like to get involved as much as I can. So when it comes to all of these new features, I don't concentrate too heavy on it, right? It's like, I know Instagram has these Reels bonuses, right? And it's like every once in a while, it's like, oh, cool, I got $500 in my bank account because of Instagram. Like, thanks. But it's like I have that 60,000 number, $5K a month. It's like that's what I know I'm going to live off of. Everything else is like invested because I want to be a creator 10 years from now.
Wow. I love how he just so casually said, oh, $500, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I'm very blessed. Very blessed for it.
We love that. We love that you tap into our markets. We love it. And that's a perfect segue into our next question. You're known for showcasing the behind the scenes of being a content curator and also hacking trends or yourself into influencer marketing events. Yeah. What is the next monetizable trend?
I think one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten from one of my mentors is content creation is not a career. It can be a career. And what I mean by that is I'm seeing a trend where all these new creators are looking at more traditional business models to really monetize. So for example, my friend Dylan, if any of you are on TikTok, you may recognize him. He worked at Cold Stone for the last 10 years of his life. And he garnered a following of 11 million followers because of it. And we met up, and he was like, hey, Tejas, like, I want to open my own shop. I feel like I understand how to do that. And my audience, very fortunate, is a bunch of investors as well, right? It's like early entrepreneurs, investors, people interested in the space. So I knew the perfect guy to connect him with and come this business, right? We're looking at, Emma Chamberlain has a great business, like Chamberlain Coffee. Right, I mean, Mr. Beast with the Mr. Beast Burger and Feastables. These are all food and beverage, but there's so many different businesses, very traditional entrepreneurial businesses. And I think that's where this creator economy is going. I think at the end of the day, it's like the content that I put out. God forbid, it's unfortunate, but like, what if TikTok shuts down tomorrow? What if YouTube shuts down tomorrow? Right? That's the end of me right now, right? So it's like, how can I build more traditional business models? I think that at the end of the day is the next like monetization. You know the word, the hack for making money for creators. So yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm struggling.
So Annalise, in 2001, you were recognized by Business Insider as one of the top talent managers for micro-influencers and emerging creators. Right, can we get a round of applause for that, please? Right. Right. Please share how you educate your clients on the value of custom content when negotiating brand clients.
Yeah, I think that's a great question and super relevant. I always jump to my experience because like I sat on the brand side, right? And so I always tell my creators that at the end of the day, there's going to be some conversation when, this campaign wraps about the value that you provided. And so the better you can understand and articulate that value, the more informed you'll be and the better, like more negotiating power you'll have. So I always tell them like, one, lean into, especially for me, because we work with diverse creators who have really unique stories, like really strong equity with the audiences that they've built. I'm like, don't be afraid to lean into what works for you. Like right now, I'm talking to a blow dryer brand about how my Black client is not going to straighten her hair every 2 weeks for this campaign because it's the summertime. And for us, that's not how that works, right? So it's about telling them to lean into what works, because at the end of the day, if you know your audience best and a brand is pushing you in a direction that like doesn't really make sense, doesn't really align, like you need to articulate that so that they can know, like, and trust you and say, oh yeah, she is going to make the best recommendation so that we can both be successful, because it's a partnership at the end of the day. And I think what is going to come from the creator economy is that there will be more of that sharing of ideas versus like, here's a brief, read the script, do exactly what we say, because it's not transparent, it's not authentic, and people can see right through it. So I spend a lot of time educating my clients on like how to articulate your value, how to know, like just stand your ground on what will work for your audience so that you can drive results and be successful in the long term.
I agree. And I also think that sometimes people forget that the influencer industry is still relatively new. And so there's going to be a lot of trial and error. And it's great to have someone like you on someone's team to educate them and continue to create a level of confidence in them so that when they do sit in these spaces, they know what to ask for. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Christen, so you went from making $150K at TikTok to launching a Glassdoor-like app called Flair for Creators. Tell us about your transition from high-profile corporate roles, as you were also at Instagram and Pinterest, okay girl, to being at a startup founder. What is one piece of advice or feedback you received that altered the way you thought about your value?
So for the first point, I would say what was crazy to me was like I was working with all these phenomenal creators on a daily basis. A lot of them are in this room, who were so like skilled and talented beyond just making brand deals, right? And what I started to notice working at TikTok was like there was a really interesting shift in the requests that were coming in. They went from like, oh, we want creators for brand deals to we want a host for an upcoming event. We want a comedian, or we want a voiceover actor to do guided meditation for Headspace. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting because there's not really a tool out there to help creators. And I felt like you said, in so many different ways, this industry feels like it's been around for a while, but there's not really a lot of people who know and care about creators going out there and creating businesses to really help empower them. And as Tay just said, you know, as he's thinking about his brand, he wants to build his own personal brand. And I think there's so much value in that. So I was like, this felt like an opportunity for me to take a leap. And thankfully, because I get brand deals, I was able to make the transition to becoming a founder because I'm a part-time content creator, well now almost full-time content creator. So I would say that's one piece of it. And then the second part of your question, I think, was in terms of
Feedback you received that altered the way you thought about your value.
Yeah, so I think one awesome creator that's in this room is Giselle that I see. And what is really interesting about Giselle is like at TikTok, you'd assume we only work with like really, really like, you know, creators with 5-10 million followers. But that's really not the case. And I think one of the things that I learned early on is it's about how you market yourself and your own personal brand. And Giselle was one that I worked with that did a really good job of that. And she like would reach out and say, hey, I host workshops. Like if TikTok ever needs a host, I'm here. And then we ended up working with her for like multiple workshops. And so I think it's so far beyond follower count, and you know, it's how you as a creator market yourself, market your personal brand. You can be doing like 6-figure deals just because of who you are and what you represent and maybe advocacy work that you're doing. So it's not all about the follower count, which I think is a good thing to remember.
I agree. And I think that, I mean, to your point, like what Annalise said, it's if you know your value, like based off of like what you bring to the table as an influencer, as a creator, even me as a host, right? Like when you know what your niche is, what your thing is, like you can sell that and people will buy it. I was talking to someone earlier in the audience about like just micro influencers matter too. So those huge numbers really don't matter anymore, actually, even for publications, just so you guys know. So, you know, I think that was important. So in December, the public relations firm MSL US, in partnership with the Influencer League, released a report titled Time to Face the Influencer Pay Gap. The research tapped into more than 400 US-based influencers. In a survey, nearly half of Black influencers said that their race contributes to brand offers that are below market value. So Annalise, as someone who sees firsthand the pay equality challenges in our trade, Why do you think it's essential to have these conversations about race, compensation with our peers and colleagues, and what are the benefits?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great question. I mean, I think we're the product of that right now. Like this conversation that we're having, someone may sit next to someone and say, I'm doing this type of work with this brand and this is what I'm seeing. Like, what are you seeing, right? And that thoughtful exchange, as small as it may seem, can open up the door for people. And like, I remember when I was first starting managing clients and, like I said, we work with diverse creators, like they would talk about what they were earning and I would be like, there are creators who do not look like you, who have been over prioritized in this industry that are running laps around us revenue-wise. And it was really like I used to see it in my inbox every single day. So the fact that now we're having these conversations and there are like formal studies that show like there is a pay gap and it's rooted in what I would consider American history, but there is something that needs to be kind of more uniform so that we can all come to the table and say like, no, this is the standard, so that people won't feel like, oh, I'm being valued less than because of the way that I look or because of the audience that I communicate with. So I think it's really important to discuss those things and be informed. And I think it's one thing to have like general conversations, but the more specific that you can get, the better informed you'll be as you're talking to your peers of different races, genders, all of these things, because it'll just bring your ability to speak to what's going on in the industry much higher, and it pays off. So I think it's really important that we're having these conversations. So yeah.
I think some people look at it as a negative thing, but I don't think it is at all. I think the exposure and you mentioned, you're the Mr. Behind the Scenes guy, right? Like you're the guy kind of, and to some extent, I told you, like I looked at one of your reels and I was like, oh, he's exposing a lot. But you're doing it in a way where I don't feel like you're being messy or anything like that. You're really just trying to help and teach others. And I feel like that's a big component of becoming an influencer. When I first moved to New York, I didn't have that. I was like DMing people, sliding in DMs like, hey, how do you do this? Or what did you charge? And and these things matter, these conversations matter, being transparent, being authentic, having people that you can trust in these spaces really do matter. So I really appreciate what you just said.
Yeah, one thing I also would say, like I think to Taja's point, like I think when you think about traditional careers, right? Like if you sat next to your peer and they were like, I make 100K and you were like, I make 50K, you'd be like, what's going on here, right? You clearly know that there's huge discrepancy. So why don't creators deserve the same type of equity and equality in those spaces? So I think like the traditional business model mindset is what needs to be applied to the creator industry so that we can say, oh yeah, this should be fair and equitable for everyone no matter what they look like, so that we can address these pay parity issues.
I agree. Oh, great answer. Thank you. So the popularity of nano and micro influencers have skyrocketed. Hype auditor data revealed that 70.7% of influencers with 1,000 to 10,000 followers charge up to $100 per Instagram post, while 76.9% of influencers with more than 1 million followers demand 1,000 or more. Christen, do you believe boosting pay transparency can safeguard the creators from not getting exploited for their time and material of their work?
Yes. So this is a big motivation why I launched Clara for creators, which I describe as like a Glassdoor-like app for content creators. Because, as she just mentioned, there was no baseline. So I myself experienced this as a content creator. And I thought, well, I've been on the other side, on the brand side. So I had Barnes & Noble reach out to me, for example, and ask me my rate for a couple TikToks. I responded with what I thought was fair market rate, and they basically were like, oh no, that's way too much and we don't want to counter because it would be insulting. And I thought, if I'm experiencing this and I see hundreds of brand deals, I can't imagine someone who is new to the industry, blew up overnight, and is having huge brands reach out to them. How can you gauge what's fair if you have no understanding of what other people are getting? And it's crazy how this exists in the corporate world, but it doesn't exist for creators. And it's actually something that's, I think, even needed more, because we get probably a couple brand deals a week. And so we need that information, I think, more than anyone. So I was like, okay, if I can at least create some sort of centralized hub of information, then my hope is that, the next time Spotify or a really cool brand reaches out, creators can basically access the information and come back to the brand with a more knowledgeable rate. right? So maybe they were gonna say 1,000, but maybe they see that another creator just got 5,000. And so that will help them get more money. And in the same way, just having that access to information, the same way, you know, like people in the corporate world can go into salary negotiations more educated and not ask for a crazy number. That's also needed on the creator side. So that was really the mission behind my company, and it's been what I've been trying to do for the last couple of months.
You guys make sure you check out. We can talk to her afterwards, even, you know, to tap more into what she has going on and to offer. So this question is actually for each panelist. And I guess we can start with Tejas, just because he hasn't gone well. So each social platform has this unique way for creators to generate income. Which platform do you feel is the most lucrative and your favorite to use?
Ooh, okay. I'll kind of separate it. I think if you want to make the biggest buck in the short term, right, let's just say 0 to 2 years, I think you go TikTok. Right? I think that's where most of the attention is. If you want to make the most money for being a creator for 10 years, I think it's like YouTube, 100%. And the reason is because I think a conversation that's not really being had right now is the quality of a view, right? And the reason, when I think there's two different types of content being fed to most users right now. It's one where an algorithm chooses the content for you, a For You page, an Instagram Reels page, and content that you as the user choose. And inherently, because you're choosing the content, right, that's just so much higher of a quality of a view. And just having even like long form videos, I think is better for revenue wise, and also you just have a deeper connection with the community. And that's why you see these creators on YouTube who've been there for 5-10 years. But if I were to start over, I'm just trying to make the most money in 2 years, so TikTok it is.
Okay, TikTok.
I actually have a very similar answer. I feel the same way. I think YouTube is, like, I don't turn on Netflix when I get in my bed anymore. I put YouTube on, and I watched a video yesterday about New York City's rats problem on Cheddar, and it was like so engaging to me. And like, if I'm Cheddar and I'm thinking about it from a publishing perspective, I'm doing really well. Like, YouTube is now aligned in my P&L because I'm creating content that people find valuable, and before that wasn't the traditional publishing model, right? So I think, like, for creators, YouTube and that long form connection and the ability to just create things that you know people want to find or that people might discover and be really interested in, I think is important. And again, you build that deeper connection versus like, I love TikTok, but I don't remember things that I see on TikTok. Like it takes, unless it's someone I really love and follow, like by the end of the night, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. Or maybe the song is stuck in my head, but definitely not the creator, right? Whereas YouTube, like I can tell you what's in my history from like the past 10 videos that I've watched because I thought it was really engaging and chose it. So I think long term, there's also a revenue sharing perspective that is a lot more intuitive on YouTube that I think other creators, like other platforms are now trying to figure out how they got that revenue sharing model so right. So I think they have a lot of skin in the game. And I think if you're a creator, like don't be so keen to skip on YouTube.
Agreed.
Okay, I think I'm biased because I came from TikTok, but I do feel like, you know, the discoverability of TikTok is really unmatched compared to other platforms. I think YouTube and Instagram are now investing a lot in building out creator teams, and, you know, YouTube Shorts, I think, is helping creators be discovered. But I've just seen so many overnight success stories with TikTok of people growing during the pandemic, you know, getting $1 million in funding for their own ice cream shop. Like that really is just crazy to me. Lives being transformed by TikTok. And I think with YouTube, when I think of YouTubers, I'm thinking of the Mr. Beasts and the people that have been on YouTube for years. And I think it's like kind of harder to break into that. But for people who are, you know, wanting to start out and wanting to build a brand for themselves, I feel like TikTok's a great opportunity to really invest into. And I think it can kind of pay off more quickly than the others.
Yeah, but can I challenge, like, I guess it's a point of view thing here, but if, I guess, because I'm thinking about everything you both just said. I mean, you all said about YouTube versus like TikTok. That's what it essentially came down to.
Yeah.
No one mentioned Instagram, by the way.
for good
I could add one more platform.
Yeah.
I think I could add one more
Well,
platform.
go ahead. Educate us a little bit more. Go ahead.
Yeah. I did not realize how lucrative Snapchat is. If like a creator is fortunate enough to have a Snapchat show, it's a disgusting amount of money. Sorry, but
I actually am on a show on Snapchat,
oh
so
man,
there goes
we know
that.
who's bankrolling here. So.
Just go ahead and put that in. But no, I guess I wanted to say to your point, you mentioned about, I guess, there are more. I remember back in the day, Justin Bieber was discovered from YouTube. I think Soulja Boy was also discovered from like YouTube. So I guess, yeah, back in the day was probably 1 to like the 10 that you discover daily here. I mean, on TikTok, but is that a good or a bad thing? Because I feel like I preferred when it was just like a real talent that stood out and it was like one of the maybe many, whereas like now everyone's a star. Every industry is kind of oversaturated to that point, and maybe that's some of the reason why it's harder too for people to know their value. I feel like because there's this lack of authenticity, I think, that comes from wanting to become a star versus just loving what you do and playing a guitar and having people see it and be like, oh my gosh, like Chloe and Hailey Bailey, those two, discovered by Beyonce. We know them though, right? Like how you said, we know them. We still know Justin Bieber. We still know, I don't know half the people I see on TikTok. So I always wonder, like, what's the longevity with that as well? I mean, I know that's, can anyone speak on that?
Yeah, I'll jump in here, but I think that's the distinction between someone that is just blowing up on a platform versus someone who's actually trying to build a brand, right? And I think the creators that can evolve, because I think if you think of the social media landscape, each platform serves a different purpose, and really smart creators who have good teams behind them will understand, okay, here's the approach on this platform, this is the goal here, here's the approach on this platform, this is the goal here. So I think you need to think of it more of like as an entire ecosystem and understand what platform serves the best purpose for what and what kind of goals you're trying to reach. Because there are so many creators I could list on TikTok right now who, if they didn't jump on Instagram, if they didn't jump on YouTube, if they didn't build a blog, they wouldn't be as successful, right? And so I think the idea of like vacuuming yourself onto one platform isn't the best and long-term approach. Like I think to your point, like there's so much discoverability on TikTok, but if I blow up tomorrow and I get 1 million followers and do nothing with it, then I just got 1 million followers and did nothing with it, right? So I think you do have to kind of think about how the platforms play into each other and what brand you're trying to build and what equity you're trying to build, because each platform does something different, and if you can leverage them right, then I think you've hit the jackpot pretty much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was a great perspective. So according to Big Commerce, social proof is a demonstration that other people have chosen or partaken in a product or service, such as reviews, testimonies, or social shares, thereby encouraging others to do so. Tagger offers a real-time social proof solution that claims to boost conversation rates by 12%. Tejas, what is social proof in your world, and how are creators making money from it?
Yeah, I think this is another conversation that not many creators really talk about, but I think it's been crucial to the success that I have today. The way I define social proof, and this isn't the most wholesome conversation, right? It's a very surface level, but it's basically the connections that I have boost my first impression to so many people. And so I always talk about this on Instagram. I think the most valuable thing on Instagram is, like, for example, if one of you are like, oh, who's this Tejas guy that's talking up here, right? The first thing you're probably looking me up on is Instagram, right? And then automatically to see how much social proof I have is to see which one of your followers are following me, right? Like right above that follow button is like, oh, this person's also followed by XYZ people, right? And so when I look at the brand that I'm building, right, which is to educate other creators, one of my main goals is to go to as many of these events as possible and to build as much social proof as possible. And so I've found myself in events where people come talk to me because they're like, oh, I see that this person, and this person follow you. Like, who are you? And I was like, oh, okay, thanks. But and I've noticed, right, one of the follow-ups, like, how are creators making money from this? I've gotten, so many, like, not so many brand deals, but I've gotten brand deal opportunities because of who I've been connected to. And I think it's a very underrated model to be like, if you don't know who I am, you're gonna automatically put me in a bubble of creators based off of who I'm followed by or who's following me. So I think social proof is a really, really interesting concept. And again, it's a very transparent, it's very transactional, right? To be like, oh, I'm going to these events and trying to get as many people to follow me on Instagram. But I don't make it feel like that. But yeah, I think it's connections, it's networking at the end of the day.
So I think, to even add on to what you were saying, I think at the end, we all learned that. Not say if you didn't go to college, but if you went to college, if you live in New York City, you know how important networking is. So it's the same, it's the same kind of concept. Like, I know for me, every job I've ever gotten is because of somebody I knew. I've truly never been because of my resume. It was always like, oh.
Yeah.
And my final question is for both Christen and Annalise. In April, Linktree released its most extensive creator report to date. The report revealed that there are over 200 million creators, but only 12% of full-time creators make over $50,000 a year. How can we encourage financial well-being for creator middle class and access to financial education?
Yeah, I think it's one, understanding the business of the creator economy. I think one of the things, like, I've had so many people reach out to me and they're blowing up or they're growing or blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I don't even have an LLC. And I'm like, oh, that's like baseline. Like, you should incorporate your company and set it up properly so that you're not being like raked over the coals in taxes and you can expense. Like, I have creators, I'm like, if you bought a full Gucci outfit for a shoot for a brand, that is expensible. Like, so I think there are components of that I think are like just baseline people should understand, like the principles of the business, because I think at the end of the day, as a creator, especially once you're getting past a certain revenue amount, like you are a small business. That's literally exactly what you are. You're probably more profitable than the average small business out there, right? So you should treat yourself as that. But I think that's one thing. But I think the other thing is understanding the space that you play in, because at the end of the day, like you can create a transactional brand deal, right? And you can get paid for that. And so you need to understand at the end of the day, like, what value did I actually just provide? And then there are things that I think are more intangible. There are things like, if I'm Abercrombie, who's had a really rough go and now is rebounding, and I'm like, oh, I really need to boost awareness. I need people to think that we're a cool, trendy brand, and I want to work with influencers to do that. Like, there's a part of that value that you can't put a number on, because if I change your perception about a brand, right, like, that's harder to say, like, oh yeah, that was worth $1. Like, that's intangible in some ways and not really super measurable. So I think it's understanding, like, the content that you're creating and the partnerships you're getting into, like, what bucket do they sit in? Are you providing are you just providing a reel, a story, or whatever? It's something that is a bit more transactional, or are you providing way more value for a brand? And how can you start the conversation to better understand it? For people who don't have management, I always say, like, especially if you're in those conversations, just ask for their budget first. Like, don't shoot yourself in the foot, especially if you don't have someone kind of helping you navigate those conversations. So if, like, I'm Pattern and I'm like, hey, I want you to shoot 4 30-second videos that we're gonna use on all of our channels, be like, hey girl, what's your budget? Because 9 times out of 10, that starting point might be better than what you thought of, right? So I'd say, like, there are a couple of things that you can do to help yourself, but I'd say doing a lot of research and asking questions when you don't know, because not everyone's gonna have a great management team behind them, but I'd say, like, asking those questions and trying to understand, like, what are your KPIs? What are you guys trying to achieve? And put yourself in a position to be like, actually, I'm really good at video views, and if your goal is video views, like, I'd recommend this approach. Like, how does this work? Like, just making it more of a partnership and kind of having the conversation that way, I think will help a ton for creators who are not breaking past that 50K mark.
I love that answer. I would also say, like, being a creator sometimes feels a bit isolating, because it's like you're your own small business, you're working with big brands like, you know, I don't know, Netflix, and you're kind of like, oh, I feel like an underdog in this situation. And even when I launched Clara, I had a lot of creators be like, oh, well, I'm scared to, like, share anonymously what I made, because in the contract, like, I'm not supposed to share it. And it's interesting because it's, like, very unregulated, and brands have the upper hand. And so a lot of times it's like, you know, whereas I'm protected, you know, at TikTok to share my salary, I'm protected under law. Like, I can talk about what I make, but creators don't really have that same sort of freedom. And I think a lot needs to change in the industry. But in the meantime, the one thing that is really powerful is community and being open to having these conversations and sharing, because I've worked with so many creators who've just talked to someone and realized, oh my gosh, I'm being so much underpaid, or this person, you know, has maybe half the following, but they're getting way more because they've done a really good job of building their personal brand. So I think having access to that pay information is one piece that's crucial, but I think the other part is just coming together as a community to kind of recognize the power that you have against these big companies that might try to scare you with their, like, 10-page contracts.
Yeah. Thank you, ladies. And to add to that, I think that to also just finding your community, finding your group, even if it's not the general masses, but just finding, like, a few people maybe you guys can be each other's accountability partners and, small community within the communities, because everyone isn't comfortable talking about these kind of things, but having those people who do trust you enough to share things with you is important. So I wouldn't just go into anyone's Instagram and just slide in DM saying, hey y'all, like, what you making? Like, it's a lot. But I wanted to thank you guys for joining me on this stage for an in-depth conversation. I would also like to recognize Soho Works, 55 Water, the American Influencer Council, Clara for Creators, and everyone who else, to everyone else who joined us in person, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. I'm Keasya. I'm the founder and host at justKay Media, and we really appreciate having you here today. Thank you for allowing me to moderate this conversation. But I'll talk to you guys. We'll talk to you guys afterwards, and thank you.
Creators with Influence is produced by the American Influencer Council, the sole 501c6 not-for-profit trade association in the U.S. created by and for career creators.